Today we'll be speaking to Sudarshan, who's currently pursuing his PhD at NTU within the field of microbiology. So, Sudarshan, to start off, could you tell us what got you interested in the field of microbiology and what led you to pursue a PhD at NTU?
Hi, Sean. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was nice meeting you last week. It's really great what you're doing. Keep doing this work. I look forward to more of your work. But yeah, I mean, in terms of me, I'm Sudarshan. I'm a PhD candidate in the School of Biological Sciences at NTU, Singapore. This whole journey of pursuing research started back when I was in bachelor's. It was not a one day thing. It just occurred to me one day when I was actually listening to one of the lectures from my professor about infections and how it can be really uh, you know um, um, tough for humans. It's in terms of showing so I just wanted to actually understand what kind of factors that actually control the bacteria and becoming very infectious. And personally, one of my friend had a severe lung infection when he was with me. But he was actually my roommate in college, and he suffered a lot throughout his 4 years of bachelor's. And I mean, like, he had this condition called cystic fibrosis. It's a very tough condition. It's a lung infection because the bacteria in the lungs, they basically reside, and then they form this stuff called biofilms. So this is actually a group of bacteria that can actually form on a surface and can become more infectious. So I was so worried for him. I had to go through all the stuff that actually happened to him, and I was so much amazed by how bacteria can actually do it by themselves. Given all the antibiotics that we have in the field of for pharmacology, it's very tough. So that's the reason I wanted to look into microbiology. I wanted to study more of microbiology. Yeah, that's actually the reason why I got into biological sciences field. And yeah, so that is how it started. And then it was a long road for me. After finishing my master's in 2017 from India, I shifted to Singapore, where I got an opportunity to work with one of the top microbiologists in Singapore. So and since then I was very sure that I wanted to be in research and do a PhD, pursue a PhD, do something for the health sector in terms of helping humans. So CELSI was a very, very good research institute. It's called Singapore Center for Environmental Life Sciences Engineering. It's a research institute within NTU, and they focus mainly on life sciences, looking at some of the biofilms, so bacteria on different surfaces. It's found in the environment, it's found in humans, it's found everywhere. So this is what motivated me to do a PhD. And after 4 years of struggle, I finally got it enrolled in 2021 August as a PhD candidate, and this is going to be my last year. Soon be graduating, and then I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Great to hear that, and great to see that your experience of working in biology from your bachelor's led you to continue to do research and get interested in the field. And yeah, it's also great to see that you're looking to help out people because obviously bacteria is something that's so minute and you can only see through the microscope, but it also has so many negative effects to the health of certain people. So it's great to see
Yep.
that microbiology is something you've been interested in. So
Yep.
another question I have is, you mentioned that you're going to be graduating and completing your PhD soon. But what are the career opportunities after pursuing a PhD within the field of microbiology, and what are some of the opportunities you would be also looking out for?
Okay. One thing I want to say is research is really diverse, and it's really important what you actually do in your PhD and what sort of projects that you choose. So that's why it's important that you choose a supervisor and a project that has a application in hand for the future, so that you can actually execute it in industry. industrial setup once you graduate. Because I think if you see it from a career perspective, you have two options. One, you can go into an industry and conduct research there. So Singapore has a lot of startups, a lot of pharma companies that actually takes up the PhD students. They only need the PhD graduates for looking at some of the projects, and also for to plan the research activities within the project. So that's one side. The other side is actually to get into academia. You just keep basically continuing the work that you actually did as a PhD, and slowly climb up the ladder and become a professor. So that's the two sides of PhD graduate. But personally, what I'm looking for is to stay at academia for a while, trying to get the grasp of it and see if it's really working for me, because at the moment I don't really know what I want to do. It's it's completely fine to be like that. It's fine to be uncertain at this point. You don't have to be really fixated on what you want to do. So at this point, if you look at Singapore, in terms of academia, the government is actually investing a lot of money on different projects, starting from health to environment. They have so many different projects coming up, and we have actually, partnered. Our lab has partnered with Singapore's PUB, which is a public utility board, and so it's a government-based organization. So yeah, so there are a lot of opportunities. So industry is one obvious option if you want to earn more. But in terms of academia, it's a slow process. It's going to take a while for you to climb up, but you will eventually get there. So yeah, so those are the options that you have in mind. Or else, the third option is a very rare option that I want to want to share about this. One of my friend started entrepreneurship. He had an idea. He was also a biologist, so he's actually starting. He started his company like 2 years back when he graduated, trying to commercialize the product right now. So yeah, that's another option as well for you. And yeah, so those are the options that you can actually look at once you graduate as a PhD. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that answer, because obviously, there's a field of academia which you can get into once you pursue your PhD, or you can even think of commercializing the product you have in mind and starting up your own business within the field of biology and microbiology. So, thank you for
Yep.
that. Another question
Yep.
I have is, do you have any tips for students applying to NTU in general? Like, if they were to pursue a PhD at NTU, what tips would you give them when applying, and how would you recommend they decide what to choose when they have to choose a research project as well and go supervisor?
Okay, that's a good question. I think I had a bigger problem trying to get into a PhD project, because as a PhD, I mean, as a student who wants to apply for a PhD with an NTU, it's going to be really tough because their requirements are very, very demanding. It's very hard. In terms of vocabulary skills, they try to test your vocabulary skills. So they have an exam which is called a GRE. You might have heard about it. It's an entrance exam in most of the universities around the world, and Singapore is one of them. And that has to be there for you to really get into the system. So that's the first line of filtering process. So once you get through that, I think then comes the project. How well you have planned your project with your supervisor. So I would advise you if you want to start a PhD, I would advise you to actually find a person, supervisor within NTU in the field that you want, and talk to him, get a project proposal, and make sure that you have everything written down, and make sure that it's also very practical for you to complete within the time span that's given to you, which is 4 years. So and then the next process is to actually get through the interview. So that's, I think it's probably 2 rounds of interview in most of the departments within NTU. So I think that's pretty much it. So most of the students, they fail. They don't actually get it because their research proposal is not practical. That's what, at least that's what I heard from my professor when he was part of the committee that selected PhD students. So yeah, so I think it's important that you get to the practicality of the project that you're designing. Most of the projects can't be finished within 4 years, and people struggle and they don't really feel like they want to continue, and they end up quitting. So yeah, so I think it's a pretty nice frame that you want to follow for the 4 years. Yeah, it's pretty good actually, and environment is really good, as you have a graduate sports club, a graduate sports committee, and then you have a committee for the graduate students. So it's pretty convenient as a student. You feel like you are being taken care of within the NTU community in terms of comfort and then yeah, and resources. The resources in NTU is top notch, so it's really good. Yeah, so just make sure that you have a very good research proposal in hand. It's okay in case if you don't really have a proposal in hand, you don't have an idea, you can talk to a professor, and then come up, ask him if he has any idea, ask him if he has any position. So I would suggest you to talk, communicate as much as you can, email, or maybe even if you are in Singapore, you can meet him in person. No one is going to say no, so you can talk, always get that straight, because I feel it's all about having that prior communication before your application that will really help you succeed if you want to get enrolled. Yeah, rather than randomly applying for positions. So that's not really going to help for PhD. Yeah, so yeah, that's very important, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for those tips. I think it'll definitely be helpful for students looking to do a PhD to have that in mind, because obviously one thing is applying, but then I think meeting with professors, getting a better sense of the various research projects you can work on, I think that would really help when a student is going to be pursuing the PhD, because that's the research that they're primarily going to work on throughout. So yeah, just a final question. I did meet you last week at the open house where you did discuss your research, which you've been working on over the last few years. And so could you tell us more about what research you were doing and what led you to do the research, and how was the overall experience?
Yeah, I mean, it all started, as I mentioned earlier. It all started when I was in bachelor's. One of the professors from my university, bachelor university, was working on this stuff already. The bacterial biofilms, so-called bacterial biofilms, those are really terrible for the environment, at least for the humans. So I was roped into that project somehow, and then I had to work on that for a while. So it was partly I was interested, but also I was roped into the project, and then I had to work myself out for getting a good grade. So that's how I actually got into this field of biofilms. So, and since then I've been working on it, and then I was one good thing that I did, that I feel that it's really good now, is because it has benefited me to do a PhD. So one good thing that I did previously when I was a bachelor was I kept on looking at different schools from different universities that does this biofilm work, and I was constantly in touch with the supervisors and professors who had been working on this field. So, and the process was not really straight, as I mentioned. I couldn't get through the requirements from NTU, so I had to go through a hard way. I was offered a staff position in NTUs, where I was still working as a researcher on the same biofilm story. But it took me 4 years before I started my PhD in 2021. So I joined NTU in 2017. So it took me 4 years, and during those 4 years, I was always, looking for a position anywhere. And unfortunately, COVID happened, the 2019 to 20. I couldn't get out of Singapore. I had an opportunity in Denmark and Australia. I got a scholarship, but apparently after COVID, the scholarship was cancelled and I couldn't go out of Singapore. Otherwise, I would have been in a different part of the world. So, but it didn't stop my motivation. I kept on applying, and then I finally had a very good research proposal out of my experience that I gained from NTU. I had a solid proposal and then a solid supervisor to support my application. And finally, I got it in 2021. And I was actually feeling really bad for those 4 years that I was working as a staff, because I felt like I was lagging behind. I didn't start my PhD on time. It took 4 years, but now I don't really regret that, because I had that opportunity to gain that experience that I wanted in order to succeed in my PhD. And now I can proudly say that I am well ahead of the proposed schedule that I had in mind when I started my PhD, with a couple of publications at well-reputed journals right now. So I'm well on track to finish my PhD next year. So that's why I suggest you to not rush into a PhD, have a proper plan, gain the experience, the skill set that you really need in order to succeed for the PhD, and the rest will be taken care of by the supervisor and the environment. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for those tips and insights, because obviously, you had the COVID pandemic in 2020, and it did affect so many people, in high school students and college students. But it's great that you were able to continue to have that staff position as a way of getting experience, and then using that to sort of improve your application as a PhD candidate. And it's great to see that, you finished your schedule on time and you're set to graduate as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I think this will really help students looking to pursue a PhD, whether it's in Singapore or in other countries. But in general, in the field of microbiology, it's a very innovative space of, medicine and biology particularly. So thank you so much for your time and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Sean, for having me again. Just wanted to thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Yeah, it's good that you have shown that interest. Have even after having this sort of discussion, I just felt that it was really good to meet you in person, to know more about it and the things that you do. It's really amazing. Keep doing the work. Keep meeting new people. Find that interest. It's really amazing. Just rock it. Yeah.
Thank you.